Ready? Okay. Today we're bringing to share with you so that you're aware of what staff and the superintendent is working on, because we know you have a longstanding interest in this topic. Before it's finalized, we wanted to share it with you. This is Regulation COGRA, currently known as Portable Communication Devices. One of the first edits we're doing is trying to move it into current language and changing that title to Personal Mobile Devices. But just a few highlights of the changes that are being proposed. First of all, we have updated the not only the title but the definition of the personal mobile devices, and these changes will allow all students to bring their personal mobile device on school grounds and to school activities. Currently, only secondary students are allowed to have their devices on school grounds. Elementary students are not to have them on school grounds, regardless of whether they're on or in their lockers or whatever. However, the change to the regulation only specifically allows use by any student during instructional time if permitted by a teacher. So this would provide the opportunity at all three levels, if it seemed to support the instructional goals of the day, to use a mobile device. They could be brought out.
All three levels, meaning elementary, middle, and high school. But if they're not allowed to have the device at elementary level, then how would they?
This changes that.
They're saying now they would be able to.
All three levels are allowed to have it.
Okay. And
And just high school can have it lunch.
I was going to say, and how is there? Can we consider allowing middle schoolers to use them at lunch, or referring to it as secondary school students as opposed to high school students?
I think I was going to say I had previous conversations with Dr. Williams on this issue, and it was my understanding that they had piloted at a few middle schools, and that they had gathered feedback from the principals, middle school principals, and they were kind of split on the issue at that time, about a year or two ago. He or staff doesn't have a recommendation regarding that, but Dr. Williams did express concern with the increase in social media activities, that he's concerned that some more middle school principals may not necessarily be in favor of such a change.
So can I just say, having lived through this whole process on cell phones, portable communication devices, from the point in time when Dustin Jeter, he was president of the MCR, and then he was a student member of the board, and it's been an evolutionary process, and the principals, while they're wonderful leaders in our buildings, have been very slow in this process of coming forward to what the reality is.
Right.
And
the fact that they're using them anyways.
One, we had to get the law changed because it was illegal to have cell phones on school grounds. And, it took us 2 years to change that law. I have a little plaque from MCR honoring me for my efforts. And two, then, principals didn't want, in the high school, they didn't want them used during the school day. In the middle school, you had to have a waiver. I got a waiver for my daughter, and yet many of her peers just put the cell phones in the bottom of their book bags. I just think they're not.
Can I just interrupt for 1 second and turn it over to Mr. Collette, because he and his staff have done extensive vetting of this, so I think that it may be helpful to talk through what the vetting has gone before we go forward.
Should I make my official proposal first, or no?
Or would you like to know all of the changes
that are proposed in the regulation?
All right.
And this is a reg. This is not.
This is a regulation.
I know, like I said, it's just a proposal, not a.
We don't have any amendment rights on this.
Okay.
But we're willing to accept all feedback.
All right, then.
Okay, so additional changes include permitting the use of the possession and use of cell phones on school buses, and that includes to and from school, as well as to and from activities during the instructional day. And of course, all of this must be done in accordance with standing regulations and rules and expectations. It also states that while on MCPS property, students must use the MCPS network, and Mr. Collette may go into this further, but it's basically for the students' protection and our ability to monitor or become aware of some of their activity if necessary. We've also added responsible use guidelines to the regulation, and there are references in the regulation to the code of conduct should students violate this regulation, and there are also references to what is in student rights and responsibilities and all other modes of communication about not using the phones for invasion of privacy or in a way that is illegal, profane, or inappropriate language impedes the health and safety of students in the community and so forth.
So I just would begin by adding that, since 2014, the summer we started doing work with schools, with administrators and teachers first around the proposed changes to the regulation. We started that work not only internally but by looking at similar governing rules in other school systems to see how they were approaching this topic. In our conversation with administrators at the school level, quite clearly, there is acknowledgement that there's even before these changes, there's great variability in what's permitted school by school. So even where we say, for example, beginning with elementary schools under the previous regulations that elementary school students are really not permitted to have personal mobile devices on school grounds, we know they have them. They have them in their backpacks. Schools work with their students and families around the ground rules about that, and they deal with issues of discipline that arise when one's stolen or comes out of the backpack when it shouldn't. Parents understand that the school system's not responsible for any damage to them. Quite clearly, in middle schools as well, even in middle schools where the culture of that school has been really not to, the official stance is not to permit their teachers in those same schools who are using and have been using the devices as part of their instructional programming. And I think that's really an important reminder here that the underlying interest in the mobile devices is that while we tend to focus on the smartphone piece of it, it's also coupled with, as we put more technology into our classrooms, we want students to be able to bring and use their own devices to support and augment that. So there is a benefit to the district as well. At the middle school, there is indeed, as was shared, a divide around what that looks like. And Mr. Gersey and I some time ago spoke about the middle schools, and my own sense of it and proposal is that we acknowledge that the school communities are different, and the way to evolve that is at the school level, to begin to get the respective school communities where there's greater concern about students using them at lunch, to bring them along. The regulation, while it specifically speaks to high school students using it at lunch, that's just an acknowledgement of where we've evolved to with high schools. It wasn't that long ago when it was about the cell phones, and there were many, many high schools that didn't even want them on school grounds, let alone to be used at lunchtime. So, my own sense of it is from the regulation strikes a balance around the fact that we are promoting personal mobile devices and their uses for instructional purposes. The feedback from teachers and administrators was clear that the reminder be there that it's for instructional purposes, so that they do not lose the opportunity to manage the school and behavior of students at school. They don't want students walking down the hallway, chatting on the phone, making a phone call at inappropriate times, receiving messages, and really to keep our students focused and on task, really. So I think there is, and it's just really a willingness then to look at what that work looks like. And there is a difference too, even at the elementary level. So our elementary schools, where they're 6 grades, they have sort of in that in between stage as well, right, around how they've approached that work, and there's just a great span of reactions and responses. But in addition to having worked through with teachers, administrators, we've tried to listen to and gotten feedback from the student interest and voice, where we've had in smaller parent settings, and still plan to work with MCCPTA officially in talking through the proposed changes. Like I said, we've spent an awful long time trying to gather feedback and strike the right balance so that we create the process for the use of a wide variety of personal devices. And again, when you think about it, it's beyond just a smartphone. There are the applicability in the world where there is the Internet of Things. When you think about our ability to manage thermostats from anywhere in the world, you think about a personal mobile device as could be a camera that is in fact communicating via IP addressing using wireless technology, and so we wanted to make sure that the regulation governs all of those types of uses.
Well, and we've had many conversations about bring your own devices. I mean, Mr. Kaufman and I attended a meeting in Fairfax County, and it was focused on the elementary school, and it was not just cell phone. I mean, smartphones. It was iPads. The reality is they're in our elementaries now.
Yes.
I mean, and they're pretty much ubiquitous in the middle schools, and I do believe that many teachers are using them in the classrooms for instructional purposes. So, I think keeping up with the reality of the times and not having them be abused or interrupt the school day. Ms. Mondrowski?
Yeah, and I just want to say that I guess for me, I feel like you even spoke to the fact that there are different. Every school has their own. I know some schools you have to drop your phone into a basket before you can use the restroom to make sure you're not just going to be on the phone, and teachers have different internal philosophies in their classroom on it. Principals have. So I guess my question is, wouldn't it make more sense for the regulations to include secondary school students as opposed to high school students, you could add something like as allowed by your or as appropriate according to your school's oversight, or however you want to word it. I don't know, but the point is, in here we do you all do reference that. Well, while we say this is okay, it's based on a teacher's determination, a principal's determination at different points. So I just feel like including all secondary school students opens it up more to the possibility and allowing a principal to say, no, you're not going to use it during lunch, as opposed to excluding it. I'm not saying it.
I have to
maybe, but
just say, they brought this to us as a courtesy because the board, we've pushed, and the student members, the generations of student members prior to Eric have been very vocal and assertive. To get to this point is a big step.
And And I think we're happy to take that under consideration and see what we can do with the text. But that's good feedback.
Mr. Kaufman?
Well, in terms of recognizing the reality of how phones are used or the devices are used they used during passing time in our high schools or middle schools? I mean, we say you can only turn them on during lunch. Do we not think that phones are turned on when kids leave class and have 5 minutes to walk to their next class? Is that shouldn't that use be acknowledged? I mean, because we're basically saying it's unauthorized under this.
It never happens. Just kidding.
I mean, and I would imagine that many parents text their children during the school day. It's not just. I mean, I
no idea what you're talking about.
The reality is, I mean, it's not just, student to student. I mean, it's mom, text. I have to say, my daughter is several years out of MCPS, but I once upon a time had to text her to say, I'm picking you up after school because, you broke your nose over the weekend. We have an appointment with a specialist today at 3:30. I'm picking you up. And, I didn't have to call the office and have them pull her out of class. And I think that happens. That's the reality.
I guess another question, do we differentiate when a device is used as a communications device as opposed to whether or not a cell phone is just used as a music player?
No. When you say differentiate for...
I'm just saying, maybe, in a class, maybe a teacher says, I don't care if we're doing an assignment, but maybe it's okay, or even if it's not okay, but maybe kids are just listening to music on their device. They're not communicating, they're not texting, but they're just listening to music.
Yeah. I think we know for a fact that happens, right? We know that during assignments, students in some classrooms are permitted to listen to music while they're completing an assignment. So we know that occurs. So it's not only to to look up material associated with the assignment, and some may sort of stretch that argument and say, well, that's for instructional purposes to activate the mind.
I'll defer to Mr. Gersey in terms of what actually is happening.
What activates my mind?
Yeah, my cell phone's ringing.
And I guess
it should be off. It should be off.
And I guess one last question is I don't know if this would be the right place. Is there any need for any policy or discussion in terms of using cell phones to take pictures? They're used during a school day, either taking pictures of other students, videoing what happens in class.
Altercations amongst students.
Whatever. I'm just saying. I know there's some reference to not privacy issues, but I'm just. It just seems like that's a huge area that, and I'm not sure what the right rules would be, but I'm just. I'm just thinking out loud whether or not that's something.
It's reflected when you watch the news. You so frequently see, a video from not necessarily a Montgomery County school, but on the national news, you see videos that have been taken during incidents in schools. It's happening.
I'm just saying, but you don't have consent.
Right.
In terms of different issues that come up, with privacy, consent, and all that. So I'm just throwing it out there in terms of whether or not that's something we need to think about.
I'll just remind you of our last meeting and board meeting last week when we brought forth the changes to the policy on cyberbullying, and it spoke to the use of phones. So in that context, as well as more directly in our code of conduct, we talk about if it include the use of the phone for a variety of instances of inappropriate conduct. So it's not addressed specifically in terms of you can or cannot take pictures, but in the code of conduct and in the bullying policy and regulation, it speaks to including if a telephone is used for those or other type of device is used for that type of inappropriate purpose.
Well, I'm not even thinking of inappropriate. I'm just thinking of it just happens. I'm not saying it's appropriate or inappropriate. It just, in the world we live in, I mean, everybody has a camera, video camera at their disposal.
They should be turned off.
They should be turned. Mr. Hersey.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing this before us, and thanks to Mr. Collette. He met with my Student Advisory Council last week, and we had an extensive discussion about technology in general, and then we discussed this subsequently. And as Ms. Mondrasky alluded to, a big issue which came up among middle schoolers particularly was that lunch piece, and I'll appreciate if staff goes back and takes a look at that and then updates us. The other area of question which I had was there's a provision in here which states that students must be on the school network when they're in the school building. And I'm curious, obviously that's largely unenforceable. So is there a legal justification to have that parameter in there? If we know it can't be enforced, why would we put it in here? Because we're not going to have this, we're not going to have the cell phone police. Oh, what's that LTE on your phone? I mean, you're on your network. That's against the regulation.
Right. We've thought a lot about this provision and gone back and forth and looked at other districts. I think that from a responsibility standpoint, when students are on our network, it permits, if we reference cyberbullying before, it permits action if there are problems. Not that we can catch everything or even pretend that we can, but I think it gives more of ability to monitor if we need to. I'm told that as a practical matter, many students actually do go on to the MCPS network because it certainly saves resources for their families by being on the network rather than planned.
Until they found out it could be traced.
If you look at usage, it goes up and down. But I think that what we're trying to do here is to channel folks onto our network to the extent that they can. And if something becomes a problem around cyberbullying, cyber harassment, and they're not using the network, it also gives us a basis for taking more action, like saying to an individual student that you may lose the privileges or the ability to have more monitoring of your use of a phone in school. So I think that what we want to do, and we looked at other districts and they are doing this too, we want to the extent to which we can control it, have folks on our network.
I mean, and we acknowledge, there is the enforceability. You're 100% correct. Nobody is walking around to check to see. As Mr. Sivens just stated, though, we know without a question, and I say this to students all the time, we know it. Just you need only look at how the network lights up as students arrive at school each day, and what that utilization looks like and where it hovers throughout the day. So the other piece of it that I think is important about having this provision is that if we look longer term, as we use an evolving set of technology to use a student's own device to complete a state assessment or some other assessment of consequence, we have greater opportunities for locking that environment during that time so basically testing time, secure it. When it's not, release it, and do those things, and it gives us a sort of clear processes and ability to do that.
Okay.
If a student uses our network, do they give up privacy rights that we could read emails and all that they send that use our networks?
So in use in the network gives us the ability to monitor what they're doing on the network. So for example, by virtue of, and it's not simply a function of sending a text, so we're not, again, we try to remind folks that we're not really sitting there unpacking and decrypting what's in that data packet to read that message. It's a function of us being able to provide a set of protections in case, in an event, something happens. The murkiness, and I'm not a lawyer, and there are plenty of lawyers to my right, but the murkiness around privacy. So in each mobile device that we carry, when you do not configure your privacy settings in certain ways, and among the technologies that we have looked at around school safety and security, and it evolves from the intelligence community, is a set of technology that I could sit here right now and let us preface it by saying we don't have it in place, but what is available is we could actually read and watch a student A walking down the hallway in a school building and sort of see what he or she is communicating. Why might that be important? In the event that someone is threatening to do harm to him or herself, there is an active threat of violence against others. So the pieces around the privacy settings, there's certain things that our phones or devices communicate based on how they're configured. But I think as a real practical matter, the piece we're dealing with here is around student conduct. That may be disruptive to the instructional program. It's not about us snooping at what's occurring.
Right. And I think this needs to be read in conjunction with our search and seizure provisions, which are based in the Constitution about what's a lawful review of somebody's emails or other materials. So I think we're more talking about blocking or limiting access to sites, which happens on our website, than any following up with email, to the extent to which we even have capacity to do that, would need to be based on some particularized suspicion that gave a basis to look at that email.
Okay, so you'll take the feedback and
Indeed.